Oh, I can pretend I was the vicar at the harvest festival. So this is where he would stand and read from the book of Genesis, and he would account how each day God created something, and at the end of the day he would say, and God saw it was good. And then finally, the greatest point of the creation of man. And God saw that it was very good, said our vicar. So here are the paintings later from about 1480. And they seem to have had some idea about the sufferings of Jesus. So there are instruments of torture depicted here. It's rather gruesome. And up there is the picture of the tomb. It's recently been restored, but it was once a magnificent picture. You can see people coming out of the grave at the Last Judgment. And here, of course, is the Bible where people read from. What have we got here? Romans chapter 8. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to those that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. So this raises a great question. Is there a law governing things, governing the universe? Of course, in the past, people believed either in fate or in the Christian God, the Abrahamic God, who controlled everything. And it reached a very extreme form with the Calvinists, who said that everything is predetermined. Long before we're born, it's decided whether we will finish up in heaven and hell. And of course, people found this very alarming. Now, that belief, at least among Western scientists, has almost completely disappeared. And instead of that, people talk about the laws of nature, how they govern things. Half of the branches have come off. In some ways, it almost makes it more magnificent. And I guess that's the essence of tragedy, the great man with one flaw of which he's unaware. So here is the archetypal tragedy, the great beach, but it's got a fatal weakness, and that's going to bring it down. That's the story of Coriolanus in Shakespeare. And Mrs. May recently, who thought she was so all-powerful, but she had a fatal weakness, which was an inability to communicate with ordinary people. I'm exploring the conjecture that there is a law of the universe. It's a timeless law of the universe, which somehow or other is governing what happens, not necessarily knowing exactly. So one possibility is that at the Big Bang, somehow or other the conditions were set up there, and that determined everything. So what was the state of the universe at the Big Bang is actually determining what I'm saying now, even although the words that I say seem to be coming into my mind quite spontaneously. Whenever I give a talk, it's very often the case I haven't the remotest idea of what's going to come out of my mouth literally in 2 or 3 seconds. Now, is that determined at the Big Bang? Is that laid down? Is something in the fullness of time unfolding itself and my words coming to be spoken that were predetermined? A lot of people find that very horrific, but there are scientists who take that quite seriously. They speak of superdeterminism. That's the grave of the vicar. Harrington something or other was his name. We'll go and find out what it is. And it certainly does look a little bit alarming, doesn't it? Huge big branch has come down, and it must have done damage to some of the gravestones there. And there's an interesting thing about copper beeches. When you stand underneath them and look up, which I'll go and do now, out here they look copper or deep copper colour. You stand underneath them and they look much greener. It's a very strange effect. So that's what really is at the back of my mind always. What is the nature of the law that is governing the universe? Is it some divine creator? Did the universe somehow of logical necessity create itself, or if there is a universe, can it only be one? There are certain things about the universe which seem to be hard to avoid, that it has to be that way. But surely it must have been that way that I'm standing here saying these words and listening to that siren as it goes by to try and help somebody outside. Was it predetermined that they should die or be in serious danger when we come into the church to talk about these things? It's a great mystery. So this is what I'm always thinking about. Getting collaborators, we talk about it, we think about whether that's plausible or not, and how we understand all the new details that keep on being discovered in physics. It's a wonderful project, absolutely fascinating. So there's quite a nice story about the church clock up there. Now, what I can't remember whether it was at the time of just before the First World War or the Second World War, but some of the young men in the village in their late teens, one of them had a gun, and he couldn't resist shooting at the church, the clock on the church tower. And somewhere in there, probably with binoculars, you could see where the bullet hit. And they still sort of chuckled about it in their older age. And there's something, oh, I see the clock has stopped. That's interesting. It's telling the wrong time. But it always used to strike at the quarter, ding dong for the quarter past, and then ding dong for half past, and ding dong.